Hello, guys, and welcome back today to the series of Let's Talk. In today's division, we're going to do the Southwest Division. And so the Southwest Division, as you can see on the screen, is consisted of 5 different teams. You got the Mavs, the Pelicans, the Grizzlies, the Spurs, and the Rockets. And today, again, like always, I'm going to talk a little bit about them individually, give my take of what they need and what they lack or whatever. And then, just kind of share my ideas with you and thoughts. And let's get into it. So let's start with the Dallas Mavericks, right? So I think their biggest focus this year needs to be defense. Last year they finished in defensive efficiency in the top 7 in the league, which is really good and honestly really surprising when looking at them. You don't feel like they play like a top 7 defensive team, but they did last year, at least towards the end of the season. And I think they need to kind of continue to push that agenda. And moving forward, I think that's going to help them get deeper and deeper into the playoffs. They've been kind of sneaking a little bit past some more of the teams slowly and slowly. A lot of that is, getting carried by Luka, of course, him being such a great player. But I think that defense, they need to solidify and keep pushing forward. And I really liked guys like Dorian Finney-Smith. And I think maybe Christian Wood's going to be a good addition to help on that defensive side of the ball. As far as bigs go, right? And so I think that's something they need to do. And they also need to focus on these players on the fringe. I think a lot of what happened in that series with the Warriors was that their guys, the Warriors guys that were on the fringe, so excluding, let's say, Steph Curry and Andrew Wiggins and maybe Klay Thompson, those other guys, they stepped up and came in and played, which was super important. And that's something that every great NBA team and every great NBA championship team has. Those guys on the fringe take that extra step. They step up and they cover the butts of the main guys who are usually getting double covered or maybe are struggling that night or have all the eyes on them, right? And so that's something that the Mavericks need to focus on, is those guys on the fringe to propel them forward. And then maybe they need to look at some, maybe getting some guys during the trade deadline. Maybe they can look to trade some guys or maybe pick up some contracts, here and there. It just depends on what they want to focus on. Now, with the Grizzlies, I think their biggest thing that bit them in the butt was three-point shooting. They really only had 3 guys who shot more or made more than 100 threes all season. One of them being Desmond Bane, who had like 230 plus, and he shot it very efficiently, which is great. I really liked him this year. He really took a step forward. And then the other 2 guys, and Jaren Jackson Jr. and Tyus Jones, I think they just scored a little bit above 100 threes, which isn't great. It's not bad, but it's just that they need to get some more guys to take some more threes. I think that's the type of league that we're in this day and age. It's a 3 league, right? You're gonna win with threes. Threes is more than twos. It's just logical, and that's something that the Grizzlies lack. And I think they need to take that next step to get maybe a couple more 3-pointers or 3-point players, or some guys who can shoot the ball a little bit more efficiently and get some more makes. So I think that's really important. Another thing would be maybe getting a secondary playmaker outside of Tyus Jones. I know they play really well when Jaw sits down, but I think having another playmaker on that team outside of Tyus Jones is really going to help them kind of when Ja Morant is off the court. Maybe it was an anomaly this year that Ja Morant, or that the team did better when Ja Morant was off, but you just never really know. So I think that's something they may want to test the waters on. And then, as always, and I feel like a lot of teams need this, is wing depth. I think losing Kyle Anderson was a big hit for them. He's not the best player, but he's a solid player, and he's someone who's good on the wing. He's a good defender. Gives you a couple points here. Well, actually, gives you more than a couple points. He's a good scorer. And I think having that wing depth, and then Dylan Brooks kind of being out a lot with injuries and stuff, I think having another wing player and adding to that wing depth is really going to help them. Now, the Pelicans, they need to figure out, their biggest focus needs to be on who is going to be expendable when injuries occur. Because this is a team that has been riddled with injuries. Kira Lewis is finally going to come back next year at some point. Same with Zion. And those are 2 big hits on that team, especially Zion, right? And so they need to figure out who's expendable, because these guys are injury prone, and it's bound to happen again. it's not something you can just avoid. And no one's body just heals overnight or in a year's time. You can take care of it, but stuff happens, right? It's just things that you can't help that are outside of your spectrum of helping. And so they need to figure out who's going to step up, where can they put pieces here and there to help out with injury. And they just need to focus on that and staying healthy. And then giving Jackson Hayes the minutes at the 4 spot that I think he deserves and feels more comfortable playing as opposed to the 5 spot. And I think that's really going to help them next year. Now, with the Rockets, interesting team. I think, again, similar issue to the Grizzlies. They need some wing depth. They don't have any good wings that I could say I feel comfortable with them having on their starting lineup. They could really use the wing depth. They could use some defensive two-way players, play really good offense and also play really good defense. And honestly, it's hard for me to say this because Jalen Green is was a rookie this past year, but I don't see him as the guy. I think that they need to get another guy alongside him or possibly to take that number 1 spot to help them propel. I like their draft this year. I think Jabari Smith is really going to help them this year. And I like Alperen Sengun, but I think they need another wing player. And I think they need another point guard who's not Kevin Porter Jr. or Jalen Green, unfortunately, because I just don't like them. Maybe I'll eat my words with Jalen Green. I think I've kind of seen what I need to see from Kevin Porter Jr. and that he's not all that. But, I guess only time will tell. They're really young, so it's really hard to, officiate what's going to happen with that team. But that's just my opinion. And then lastly, the Spurs. The Spurs had been one of the better dynasties of all time throughout the early 2000s and even going into the mid-2010s. And I really hated the team because I was a Miami Heat fan, and they were one of the few teams that gave us problems during the Heatles day and age. And it's just the Spurs are a very formidable franchise, one of the most winningest franchises of all times, and definitely within the last 20 years, probably the winningest franchise. And it's weird to see them in a full, essentially, rebuild mode where they have picks and not necessarily any good players. But I think that the biggest thing the Spurs can focus on is embracing that rebuild. Really, really taking a seat into that spot of the rebuild and just moving along with it and letting the course of it happen. You're not going to have Popovich forever, and maybe it's time for him to step down and pretty soon and kind of start a whole rebuild fresh. And it'd be really sad to see him go, but I think that might be what the team needs. But yeah, I think that's going to do for it today, guys. As always, there's going to be another video on the top of the screen and the middle screen. Go ahead and check that out. If you like what you see, if you enjoy me, go ahead and check that out. Leave a like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you think. Let me know your opinions. And as always, take care. Later.